We often talk about well-being, mental health, fitness, maybe even financial security. But what about that feeling sometimes, even when all those boxes seem checked, that something, I don't know, deeper is still missing? Like a quiet hum, a longing for connection, maybe, meaning beyond the everyday grind?
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today, this often overlooked dimension. Connecting to something, well, something bigger than ourselves.
Right, something bigger.
Because true fulfillment, the kind that really anchors you when life gets rough, it rarely comes from just getting more stuff.
Yeah.
It comes from that deeper engagement, a relationship with something expansive that could be community, maybe a spiritual path, or even grappling with those, big unsettling questions about existence.
So our mission for you listening is to unpack some hopefully surprising insights, maybe some practical tools, and definitely some real-world examples, things that show how these connections can lead to a more, joyful...
And it's not about rigid rules or dogma, right?
No, absolutely not. This is broad. It's about exploring connection, sparking your own journey.
It really is about finding what feeds your soul, what breathes life into your being.
Okay, so something bigger. It sounds a bit abstract, maybe?
It can, yeah.
For a lot of people, I think the most concrete starting point is community. How do you see that playing out now, especially when the world feels kind of fragmented sometimes?
Well, what's really fascinating here is how our idea of community has had to shift. It isn't just about who lives next door anymore, though that's still important, of course.
Right.
Community, like at its core, it's this web. Relationships, structures, things that genuinely support us. It gives you that real sense of belonging, a shared identity, mutual care, that collective strength. And the key thing is, loneliness isn't just being alone.
Good point.
You can be in a huge crowd, totally surrounded, and feel completely isolated if there's no real connection there. It's about the quality of the ties, not just the number.
That difference, being alone versus feeling lonely, that's huge.
It is.
It suggests we need to be intentional about how deep our interactions go, not just how often we have them.
Exactly.
So if community gives us that external belonging, what about the inner stuff, that sense of self beyond the social? If belonging grounds us outside, how do we find grounding inside? Which brings us, I guess, to spirituality. Where does that fit in this puzzle of connecting to something bigger?
Yeah, and this is a really important question. How do we nurture our soul? Spirituality, fundamentally, is about being attentive to what feels sacred.
Sacred, okay.
It's about creating a personal connection to, it could be a concept, a belief, a higher power, whatever you see as greater than yourself.
So not necessarily traditional religion?
Not necessarily, no. It might be faith in God, sure. Or it could be following the wisdom of certain spiritual figures, or even just feeling that deep reverence when you're out in nature.
Right.
It's basically your personal search for the sacred in your life. And here's something crucial, often missed: joy. Yeah, joy isn't just a nice little bonus of being spiritual. It's actually essential to it. It's about figuring out what truly feeds your soul, what makes you feel vibrant, alive, versus what just drains you.
Feeds your soul. I like that. It makes it feel active, like something you do.
It is an active process, yeah. Conscious nourishment.
Okay, but what about those really big, sometimes uncomfortable questions? Life's meaning, our place in it all. How does something like existential philosophy help with that?
Yeah. Existential philosophy kind of throws us into the deep end, doesn't it?
A little bit.
It makes us face the big stuff. Our own mortality. Finding meaning when the universe doesn't just hand it to us, the sheer freedom and responsibility of our choices.
Which sounds potentially terrifying.
It can be. That struggle can definitely lead to anxiety, feeling alienated, maybe even despair sometimes. But here's the twist. Embracing these themes can actually boost your well-being. It's not just staring into the void. It's about finding the courage in that void to create your own meaning.
Yeah.
And strangely, that can lessen the very anxiety it started with. Facing our limits can unlock this incredible freedom. It fosters a much deeper sense of purpose, authenticity. It's about really engaging with what it means to be human, warts and all.
Okay, it's one thing to talk about these big ideas, these shifts in perspective, but is there actual, measurable proof? Does this stuff really change our lives in ways we can see?
Oh, absolutely. Let's look at the data.
Yeah.
Because it really does underpin these benefits for you.
Okay.
If we connect this all to the bigger picture, there's a clear, powerful link between these deeper connections and our tangible health outcomes, mental and physical.
Right.
Take community. The evidence is solid. Strong social ties. They significantly cut the risk of anxiety, depression, even dying early.
Really? Dying early?
Yeah. There was this major meta-analysis back in 2010. It found people with strong social relationships had a 50% greater chance of survival over time.
50%. Wow.
To give you some perspective, that's like the same health benefit as quitting smoking or maintaining a healthy weight.
That's huge.
It is. And other long-term studies, like that big Harvard one on adult development, they keep finding the same thing. Close relationships, way more than money or fame, are the biggest predictor of lifelong happiness and health.
Okay, that's incredibly compelling. So it's not just about feeling better, it's literally about living longer, happier lives. What about the data on spirituality itself? Is that just as quantifiable?
It absolutely is. Spiritual engagement is consistently linked to lower all-cause mortality. Some research suggests a pretty remarkable 25 to 30% reduction on the risk of death.
25 to 30%.
Which could potentially add, on average, maybe 7 years to your life. And for African Americans, that number jumps to potentially 14 years.
14 years. That's incredible.
Beyond just living longer, spiritual practice is tied to coping better with stress, more optimism, increased compassion, forgiveness, and significantly less anxiety and depression. And then there's this concept of spiritual intelligence, or SI.
SI, like IQ or EQ?
Sort of, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Think of it like a spiritual quotient. It helps with problem solving, creating deeper meaning and purpose, and it generally boosts well-being and resilience.
Okay, give me an example. How does SI work?
Well, imagine someone facing a tough ethical choice at work. Someone with high SI might not just use logic. They might also tap into their core values, their intuition, to align the decision with what feels deeply right. That often leads to a more satisfying, authentic solution.
I see.
And studies show SI helps people cope with really stressful situations, recover from trauma, even reduces things like depression, stress, and fear of childbirth in pregnant women.
The data is genuinely eye-opening. It really makes you wonder, though, if these connections are so vital, why does it feel like we're getting more isolated? Despite knowing all this, there's a real modern disconnect, isn't there?
Unfortunately, yes. It's a strange paradox, this rising sense of isolation, even as the science shouts about the benefits of connection. I mean, look at the UK government survey from 23-24. Only 56% of adults felt people in their neighborhood pulled together. That's down from before.
It's worse for younger people.
Much worse, yeah. Only 44% of 16 to 24-year-olds felt that local collaboration, and they consistently report being less happy overall.
That age gap is really worrying. And, okay, money's tight for a lot of people. That makes sense as a barrier. But are there other things going on, too?
Definitely.
We're all plugged in constantly, digital connection everywhere. Yet sometimes that seems to make the isolation worse, maybe, like a surface connection without the real substance.
Yeah, you've hit a critical point there.
Yeah.
Financial pressure is huge, no doubt. A survey found 1 in 3 UK adults cut back on activities that support mental health simply because of cost.
Wow, 1 in 3.
But the nature of how we interact now plays a massive role, too. We've sort of optimized for convenience, maybe over depth. Online chats, social media. They're useful, sure, but they often lack the nuance, right?
Yes.
The body language, the shared space, those random unplanned encounters that actually build real rapport.
The third places.
Exactly. We're losing those third places, the coffee shops, libraries, community hubs, where connection used to happen more organically. Now it's often just transactional digital exchanges.
And that creates a vicious cycle.
It really does. Less genuine connection leads to poor mental health, which then makes it even harder to reach out and engage, deepening the isolation. It spirals.
Okay, so we get the importance, we see the challenges. How can you, listening right now, practically start building these deeper connections? Let's talk about community in everyday life. It feels like it has to be intentional.
It absolutely needs intention, yes. But the good news is it really doesn't require some massive effort.
No.
No, think small, consistent acts. Like actually taking a moment to speak to your neighbor before you both jump in your cars. Or, saying more than just your order to the barista. Even just a simple hello to other people when you're walking in the park.
Little things.
Tiny things. But they're the threads. They weave together that fabric of trust and familiarity that strong communities need. They make people feel seen, acknowledged, connected. It encourages more interaction down the line.
It's about actively choosing connection over just defaulting to being separate, even in those tiny moments.
Precisely.
And what about more structured ways? Is there a proven path to deepen those community ties?
Volunteering is a really fantastic way in.
Okay.
It's not just about helping a cause you believe in, although that's great. It automatically connects you with other people who share your values, working towards a common goal.
Right, that shared purpose.
Exactly.
Great.
And studies show, again and again, regular volunteering links to lower depression rates, greater life satisfaction, especially if you're actually interacting meaningfully with others while doing it.
So it benefits the volunteer, too.
Oh, hugely. It's a powerful two-way street. You give back, and you get this profound sense of belonging and meaning in return. It's a shame that formal volunteering rates have actually dipped recently. We could all benefit if that trend reversed.
Maybe people just need a nudge or ideas.
Perhaps. And beyond formal volunteering, think about actively creating spaces for connection yourself.
Like what?
Could you start a regular potluck on your street? A neighborhood book club? Even just organize a weekly walk in the local park? These intentional actions can really spark community spirit.
So small daily things, maybe some structured volunteering, or even creating your own opportunities. It's about being present and proactive.
That's it.
It makes me think of Lori's story. She didn't really see herself as religious in a traditional way, but she found this incredible peace and belonging just by going to High Holy Day events, being at the temple in her Reformed Jewish community.
Right.
For her, it wasn't just the spiritual side, it was the shared experience, the ritual, feeling part of something bigger, older.
That's a perfect example. It shows how the community aspect of spiritual traditions, even separate from specific beliefs, can provide that deep sense of belonging and peace people crave.
Okay, so that's community. Now let's shift inward a bit. Cultivating spiritual practices for that inner nourishment. You mentioned silence, meditation.
Yeah, these are incredibly powerful tools, and they're becoming much more mainstream, which is great.
Right.
A steady daily practice, even just a few minutes, it really does reduce stress. It quiets that nonstop mental chatter, and it genuinely makes space for joy.
And things like MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction.
Exactly. That came out of Buddhist tradition, but it's become this widely used secular tool precisely because it works. The evidence for improving physical and mental health is really strong.
It is interesting how ancient practices find new life in secular ways. I remember hearing about Aruna, this executive, super practical, kind of skeptical, thought meditation was all new age hocus pocus, but she tried just a short daily mindful meditation. And she was genuinely floored by the tension relief she felt. And it wasn't just her, it apparently improved her relationships with her family, too. A real tangible benefit she wasn't expecting.
See, Aruna's story is great because it shows how practical and impactful these things can be for anyone, whatever their starting point.
Yeah.
Then you have prayer, which at its heart is just communication with the sacred, however you define that. And the research backs it up. Prayer tends to improve psychological functioning, gives a strong sense of meaning, reduces stress, helps people cope.
You have an example for that, too.
Yeah, Abe.
Yeah.
He started incorporating Catholic prayers, the Our Father, Hail Mary, into his bedtime routine. He wasn't necessarily devout day to day, but he found it calmed his mind, helped him deal with really bad insomnia.
How did he describe it?
He said it felt like being watched over by God, which let him finally relax enough to sleep, a very personal source of comfort.
That's lovely. Finding peace in a personal practice. What about purpose? Serving others, how does that connect?
Finding your purpose in serving others. That's a fundamental shift in perspective. It helps your soul, if you like, move beyond just the ego, the self-interest.
Okay.
And that opens doors to creativity, to healing. Think of Janelle, the social worker with abused kids.
Right.
Incredibly tough work. But she sees it as her mission, driven by her Christian faith.
Yeah.
She literally says she's helping to build the kingdom of God. That gives her work immense meaning.
Wow.
Or Tyrone. Retired, maybe feeling a bit adrift. He started supporting and volunteering at nonprofits, found huge joy, felt way less isolated. He even said it did more for him than for the people he was helping.
That giving back loop.
Exactly. Dedicating yourself to something beyond just your own gain brings this unique, deep fulfillment.
It really feels like a two-way street, giving of yourself like that. It enriches you too. And you mentioned universal virtues before, things that seem to pop up everywhere.
Absolutely. Things like forgiveness, gratitude, love, kindness, compassion. They're woven into pretty much every wisdom tradition across the globe.
They seem foundational.
They really are. Forgiveness. It's like an antidote to carrying around anger and resentment.
Yeah.
Frees you up. gratitude, even for tiny things. Studies link it to better sleep, more optimism, stronger relationships, and the golden rule, treat others as you want to be treated. That's everywhere. It underlines how connected we all are.
Do you have an example of someone living these?
Jerry comes to mind. He starts every single day just saying, "Thank you, God, for another day."
Simple.
Right.
Yeah.
And he consciously tries to approach life with forgiveness, with loving kindness. When things get tough, he reminds himself, let go and let God. These aren't huge dramatic things, but they shape his whole outlook, his inner peace.
They're like small, consistent choices that add up.
Exactly. They're building blocks for a flourishing life, whatever your specific beliefs are or aren't.
And ethical values, that internal compass, that must play a big role too.
A huge role.
Yeah.
Religious and spiritual traditions often provide these time-tested guidelines for how to live ethically, promoting respect, responsibility, integrity, caring for others.
And following those helps your own well-being.
Definitely impacts psychological well-being. Take Arjun. Doesn't really see himself as religious traditionally, but he credits his Hindu upbringing for his strong ethical compass.
Right.
He works in what he calls a sleazy, cutthroat environment, but his values guide his actions. And that gives him this deep sense of integrity, inner peace. He knows he's living authentically.
That makes sense. And acceptance, that came up too.
Yeah, acceptance is key. Accepting yourself, faults and all. Accepting others too. Thu, for example, used the serenity prayer in therapy.
God grant me the serenity.
That one. She used it constantly to manage her anger, to figure out what she could change and what she just had to accept. She even joked she wasn't religious, but that prayer just made perfect sense. It helped her enormously.
It shows how wisdom can resonate regardless of the source. Right?
Totally. Find what works for you. And another really powerful idea is the sacredness of life itself.
How does that help?
Believing that all life, including your own, is sacred, is divine. That's an incredibly strong foundation for self-esteem and for how you treat others.
Can you give an example?
Zoe, she'd struggled with suicidal thoughts for years. What turned things around was embracing this idea that her life, all life, is sacred. She held on to the thought, if God lives in me, I have to be worthy.
Wow.
It completely shifted her perspective, gave her hope, an unshakable sense of her own value. It can be genuinely life-changing.
That's powerful.
And beyond these individual practices, there are also more comprehensive programs now. Things like the 8-Point Program, EPP.
Okay, what's that?
It basically distills spiritual principles like passage meditation, using a mantra, slowing down your pace of life into adaptable, evidence-based tools. These are for stress management, improving focus. Studies show they help reduce burnout in nurses, improve performance in students, things like that.
So lots of different paths and tools available. Which brings up that key question again, how do we actually integrate these big ideas of these practices into our busy everyday lives?
It feels like it comes down to making a conscious choice, doesn't it? Prioritizing it.
Precisely. It boils down to being intentional. Whether you focus on community engagement or specific spiritual practices, or maybe grappling with those big existential questions. The common thread is actively connecting to something beyond just yourself.
Yeah.
It's consciously choosing to look up, look out from your immediate worries and see the bigger picture you're part of.
So it's moving beyond just self-care, as we usually talk about it. Maybe it's more like soul care.
I like that soul care, yeah. Because that active engagement, it builds resilience, purpose, inner peace. It really creates this profound sense of well-being that touches everything, mental, physical, social. It changes how you feel and how you show up in the world.
Ultimately, yeah, true well-being isn't just about managing stress or hitting goals. It really is about nurturing that connection to something bigger, whether that's your community, a higher power, or just a deeper, more authentic grasp of your own existence and purpose.
So thinking about everything we've explored today, what's one small step you could take this week? Just one thing to connect more deeply with something bigger than yourself. And maybe think about how that small step might ripple outwards, how it might change your world, even just a little.
Yeah, just think about that. Even the smallest intentional step can start something really profound, something lasting.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. We really hope you feel maybe a bit more informed, perhaps inspired, and ready to explore these connections in your own way, in your own life.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep connecting, and keep thriving.